new adult ADHD diagnoses increased 53.8% between 2019 and 2021.
Whoa. Okay, that 2.5 year period.
Yeah. Again, when everyone was at home, locked, shut in, having to deal with lots of stuff. And we saw parents struggling with kids who were trying to do online school.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we saw
parents struggling with themselves.
Yes.
All right. So I was on the plane this week. I'm in Colorado. Woohoo. And wouldn't you know it, I'm flying Southwest, a very talkative, sort of chummy airline, for those who know it. I am sitting with a gap in between us, an empty seat, next to a woman named Kim. And Kim and I strike up a conversation that's very New Orleans, which is, what's your last name and where'd you go to high school, right? And we found out very quickly that Kim went to my mother's high school and was a freshman when my mother was a senior. So what developed from there, or you might say devolved from there, was her texting her girl group from high school and asking them, do we know the Tontis? And her girl group getting back and being like, yes. And me seeing a one-word yes and being like, Kim, you know what comes after that. And then after that, her friend being like, I made out with John Tonti in high school. So we're having
your dad?
My Uncle John.
Okay.
Baby. So it turns out their friend group is like a little bit younger than my mom and dad's age.
This is your dad's brother.
But these are my uncles and aunts' age. So they know, not only do they know John, friend of Kim was like, yeah, I know the Tontis. I made out with John. Because New Orleans is an incredibly small town. So as we get more amped, we're getting really into the NOLA catch up. And at one point, we are talking both at 180 miles an hour. And Kim goes, oh, by the way, I know you have this ADHD company, but also I'm ADHD. And we had a rapport enough that I could reach out and like put my hand on her hand. I was like, honey, we know. Do you recognize that we're talking at the same mile per hour right now? Like game, respect, game. And she kind of blushed and laughed it off. And then immediately was like, you know what? I need to know this company. What is it? And like forced me to put all of our details in her phone, like attention.com and, you know, the podcast and everything. We've got another follower, subscriber, woohoo. But this made me, this reminded me of something that's been going on a lot that I wanted to ping you about, Aaron. So this year in particular, and even last year, but it feels like it keeps exponentially rising. The number of strangers either coming to me or disclosing to me, or I've stumbled and arrived at a conversation and they disclose mid-conversation. The number of strangers telling me that they have ADHD, either they've been diagnosed forever or they just recently got diagnosed, has increased exponentially over the last year, especially the last 6 months. And it's become comical. Where like I'm on the toilet in the morning doing my morning dew watching YouTube, and I'm watching a British comedy panel show, and one of the new guests on that show says in an opening bio, oh, by the way, I have ADD, so if I could get extended time, that would be marvelous because I actually do have ADD. It's not just that my parents are divorced, right? So like it's become colloquial almost to disclose your complex mental condition. And what I finally realized with Kim, or maybe for the 1,000th time this year, I thought, was this our experience growing up? This was the question I had. Aaron, when we were growing up, were people this both gregarious and sort of confident and excited almost to reveal that they're ADHD? I'm seeing celebrities do it, total strangers, past mentors. Okay, right. That's my feeling. It feels like a lot more.
It's a huge shift. It's a change. I think before the pre-pandemic, the tendency was to hide it, was to not say anything. And this whole, I think since the pandemic, and it's probably because of TikTok, social media, and as you said, celebrities and other influential people out there self-disclosing and being more open. But I do think that was probably started from a bottom-up movement of folks that were being vulnerable on their social media platforms, right in their house, being like, yeah, I think I have ADHD, and sharing that with the world. And that just like was like a ripple effect. And I looked up some statistics on this, and in the US, diagnosis rates increased 66 to 78%, 66 to 78% between March of 2020 and December of 2022. And that's compared, to the pre-pandemic baseline numbers. Yeah.
So pre-pandemic, we are at a baseline of diagnoses. Between 2020 and 2022, which is 2 years, we saw a 66 to 80, you said?
66 to 78. Yeah, it's about
That's nuts. For anybody who's like a statistician in our audience, their eyes are exploding. For people who aren't statisticians, let me be clear, the reason their eyes are exploding is that's an insane percentage increase, right? Like is in such a short amount of time. In 2 years, for there to be that multiplier of diagnoses is massive, which gives more credence to this feeling.
Yeah, and here, I'll break it down even finer. So ADHD diagnoses increased 53.8% from 2019 to 2021. And that's new ADHD adult diagnoses.
Oh, that's key. Ooh, what an asterisk. New ADHD adult diagnoses. Great for our crew.
Yeah. So based on private insurance claims, new adult ADHD diagnoses increased 53.8% between 2019 and 2021. And the steepest increase actually occurred between Q4 of 2020 and Q2 of 2021.
Whoa. Okay. That 2.5 year period.
Yeah. And that's
year and a half to
again, when everyone was at home, locked, shut in, having to deal with lots of stuff. And, I think we saw parents struggling with kids who were trying to do online school.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we saw
parents struggling with themselves.
Yes. And parents trying to focus with kids in their home, right? Juggling multiple tasks. Because before they were in the office, there's more stimulation. Now they're at home.
Yeah. There's
dealing with all of these distractions. And then it's this mirror, right? The kid is acting out, having troubles focusing. The teacher's probably saying, hey, I think your son or daughter has some focus issues, some attentional issues, and then all of a sudden they're like, wait, let me look up this ADHD thing, right?
It me, the old big if true. I'm laughing because we're ADHD and we know what you just said. Of course, it was this Mother Nature act of God moment that forced people who had, without knowing it, coped. They had found coping mechanisms. They had found a job that was away from home. They had a place they go for 8 hours a day. They have probably their own rules and systems at that place of work, and at home. We had systems. We had routines. And the pandemic obliterated all of them for everyone. So everyone started at the same zero, right?
And another thing I think is because the telehealth rules were relaxed.
Yes.
You could do across state, interstate compact kind of stuff. Like before, you couldn't treat people outside of your own state, right? But they relaxed those rules. And so you had psychiatrists and online mental health companies being able to like broadly kind of provide services. One of those was like Done. And there's some controversial stuff about some of these companies, right? I don't want to just pick on Done, but it was like, that's one of them. And there's like some other like ADHD diagnosis online, or there was a few of these in that category where it was like, come get your ADHD diagnosis. It's quick. It's fast. It's just a, quick phone call, quick interview, online form. And
the medical grifter, which has been around in America for centuries and the world.
Yeah. So, and I'm not saying, I mean, who knows? Maybe these people, there was a percentage that have ADHD, who knows, right? But there was a relaxing of different rules, right? It was a relaxing of who can diagnose where, and then also like, the standards that were previously employed got relaxed as well. Now, I don't think that means that a lot of these people, there is probably a certain percent, but I don't think a lot of these people like are faking it or don't have ADHD or just trying to get medicine or something.
Stuff, whatever.
Yeah. I don't think that's a huge percent, but we have to assume there's some amount of that, right? That slipped through the cracks. And we'd have to look up more of like what that is. I don't have those stats on me.
Well, we know that the size and scale is part of it, right? Like if before the pandemic, there were global issues with misdiagnosis, not missed, right? That exists as well, but misdiagnosis. So someone gets diagnosed for depression when they have bipolar. And we can assume, right, with those dramatic percentage increase in diagnoses before the pandemic, there were issues in misdiagnosing someone. So we have to assume that there's some percentage on that scale increase of people who got a misdiagnosis, meaning they were diagnosed for ADHD when it was anxiety, or they were, you know what I mean? Like there's that gray area.
And I want to be careful about when we say misdiagnosis, because like when I hear misdiagnosis, I'm thinking it's the wrong diagnosis. And sometimes it's an and both situation, right?
Right.
It's like,
good point. Great
we're
point.
flagging anxiety or depression, and maybe, yes, they do have that. But is that the predominant one?
Right.
It might be co-occurring. It might be like, actually, the real root of the problem is undiagnosed ADHD, but we're calling it depression. We're calling it anxiety. We're calling it adjustment disorder or something. And it's not. It's something else, right?
So maybe a bit more healthy, more appropriate way to say it is that with an increase in two categories, speed and amount, right? So and by the way, and a decrease in one, very important, quality. The quality of assessment, right? But the quantity,
And people having, I think, more time, right? When you cut out all the other things, social engagements and all the other stuff, it just afforded people more time to be able to take care of certain things like that. And if you could log online during a break at work and be like, let me look into this finally, because I don't have to drive into a doctor's office and do all these things.
Yeah.
Of course. So it's an opportunity kind of thing as well.
It's a really good point you make, that not only was the accessibility increased because of telehealth relaxing, but like just on its face, accessibility increased, but also incentives increased. As you just said, you didn't have to drive to a place. You don't have to go in person. You don't have to,
which is a huge barrier. That's a huge barrier. Like,
massive.
Think about it. Yeah. You relax all the rules, which are the barriers to entry. And now all of a sudden everyone's like, well, yeah, I've been meaning to do this for a while, but if I could just like have a virtual session with my doctor during my lunch break. Well, all right, let's do it.
I think there's something. Oh, wait, this helps. Wait, you just said it. You said the thing. I've been meaning to do this for a while, but for whatever barrier or barriers didn't, right? And then this Mother Nature event cleared those barriers, right? Isn't it interesting then that some of that energy is what's driving my question for today, right? Like that I've been waiting to do this for a while. That's not a shame-based desire, right? That's when I have the time, when I have the energy, I want to prioritize this, which we've heard each other say and other people say 1,000 times, right? They did it finally. And now I think part of the holdover, the positive, courageous self-disclosure holdover is maybe due to a bunch of people self-actualizing really fast. Like over a short period of time, a bunch of people were like, oh, I can go get tested. I do have time and energy to go to investigate this finally. Oh my gosh, I was right. I do have a known named condition that has a prognosis, that has treatment strategies. I'm going to dive right into this community that I thought I was a part of, but never confirmed, right? And I think that narrative is very important to the experience I'm having now, where people are very excited to disclose that they're ADHD. They're happy and thrilled to say, oh, me too. And I think that might be in part tied to this genuine desire to know things, desire to know things about ourselves. If we're given the time and the space, we en masse genuinely want to know more things about ourselves. And we're really excited to share them when we do know them, as long as they're not toxic. Hey, attention different fam, we've got an e-course for you. It's called Thriving with Adult ADHD. If you've ever felt stuck starting tasks, overwhelmed by managing your energy, or unsure how to build routines that actually work, this course is for you. Again, that's Thriving with Adult ADHD. Inside, you'll learn practical strategies to help you focus, strengthen your relationships, and feel more in control of your day-to-day life. With over 2 hours of video lessons and an 80-page workbook, you'll walk away with tools you can use right away to not just survive, but thrive with adult ADHD. Head to attentiondifferent.com now to get started.
I also want to be aware that I think there's a disproportionate amount of female ADHD diagnosis during this time, specifically because I think there was increased responsibilities at home, right? This kind of double burden that a lot of, let's say heteronormative couples are experienced.
Yeah. Heteronormative with AFAB, house moms. Moms are doing the job and the house.
Domestic chores, sure. Whatever, right? Either way, I think there was some of these. I think it was the combination between social media engagement, right? Maybe they had more time to, in some ways, to be on social media, engaging with social media, being part of communities on social media, right? Finding other women on social media, being like, "Are you struggling with this too? Wow, this is hard. This is."
What comes to mind is Trina.
Right, Trina. Trina is the quintessential.
You're describing her journey, dude.
Trina Haynes, who became My Lady ADHD, and she launched everything during this time, and it was just her venting on the camera, on her phone, in the bathroom, being like, this is hard. Life is hard.
Yeah.
And figuring out, I have ADHD. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, Trina's a perfect example of this person.
So in terms of demographic patterns, women, 84.3% increase compared to a 57% for men.
I want everybody to understand
during the same period.
Is that 27? Did I just hear 27%? 27 percentage points difference is huge. Not everybody here is the same politics slut that I am, but a 27 percentage point difference is a quarter of 100%. You guys, that's a massive population size. So while AMAB people were getting increased diagnosis, 54 to 57 is not nothing. Yeah. That's a lot of increase. But on top of that, our AFAB peers are getting almost 30% more women are getting diagnosed with ADHD during this time. Like that answers to why a lot. And this is not me making this up, gang. Kim is a woman from my story on Southwest, right? Mm-hmm. The number of women who are coming up to me and saying, me too, is more than men. It like the number of adults who I got my diagnosis, I'm now ADHD. It absolutely fits that percentage. I'm experiencing a greater number of women coming to me saying, I just got diagnosed than men.
And if we break it down by age, between the ages of 30 and 45, that demographic increased 91%.
Aaron Smith, damn, something really, dude, that's like earthquakes. That's earthquakes. Like in the world of medical science, in the world of mental health, I'm trying to avoid disaster language. That's an event, like an historic event. That's an historic event of discovery and diagnosis happened in 2020 to 2022, where 90 plus percent of 30 to 45 year olds or 35 to 40. 30
to 45 year olds. Yes.
It me, right? It us. So of course I'm having this experience, you guys. Of course I am. I'm 34 years old. I am in the target demo that had an historic increase in ADHD diagnosis over the course of a year and a half. So of course I'm having this experience. Everyone who I fraternize is between the ages of 30 and 50. So if I see those people every day, I am bound to run into some of these folks who got these diagnoses. If there's a 90+% increase amongst our demographic specifically, then gee whiz, thanks dad, duh, as they say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'll also throw another wrench into this just to kind of look at where things are going, because I think it launched a trajectory, right? So since that time, now we look at, what did that boost in diagnosis actually do to other things? And what I'm thinking, because what's happening right now, right? If you look at in the zeitgeist of social media right now, there's a very popular term kind of going around, it's the AuDHD.
Oh, folks, yeah. Right.
The combo of ADHD and autism. Well, I think that there's a certain percentage, right? And this is just my speculation here, but I think the research will bear this out, that there was initially more people, because ADHD is easier to diagnose on the outside, right? Of people who have autistic traits, right, in presentation, coming in and being like, hey, these symptoms, they all match. They all, they fit with me. And we can even see it with a few of our cohort. Yeah. I don't want to name names exactly, but there's a few of our influencer folks who actually had this exact experience, right? Where they came out as ADHD during the pandemic time. And now they added the other
it's happening on top of frequently, to your point. Frequently. Yeah. It's happening to the point where we talk to one friend this week, and then next week we talk to that friend, and they're like, oh no, AuDHD now. And you're like, it's like literally week to week. Yeah. Oh, okay. Wow. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Or sometimes it's like, oh yeah, and that makes sense. But
I would say
knew that. Yeah.
Predominantly amongst our peers, who are also for the people listening, like coaches, trained ADHD people, like the persons we are speaking about are people who do this as well. So when they come to us and go, nah, it's co-occurring, we're like, yeah, that tracks. That makes sense. Yeah. And the AuDHD combo is increasingly more exciting and fascinating to me in a way that it wasn't. And again, that is also a result of all this increase, right? Of all this increase in awareness and diagnosis. Is now I, as a budding ADHD expert with Aaron here, I have more to chew on. Like when an AuDHDer comes to me and starts talking now, I'm not responding or reacting to the novelty of meeting someone who's co-occurring anymore. I'm now skipping that step and going into all the fun nuance of the Venn diagram of the two conditions, right? Like talking to my friend, I'm like, oh, how does this affect you? Or where's your hypersensitivity in these contexts? Or like, do we both share this hypersensitivity in this sonic context? We're getting like more nuanced, which is so thrilling for me because we don't have to have like a don't they exist conversation anymore. It's sort of like we just accept at face value that you're probably co-occurring, that you got these two diagnoses, and now I want to talk about the differences. So that's been exciting too.
Yeah, it's hard sometimes to know the differences, to see it. So for an untrained eye, someone that's not a diagnostician, a therapist, a licensed clinician, knowing what's the difference between a presentation of someone, let's say like hyper fixating on something or perseverating.
Right.
What's the difference between someone, having social anxiety, right?
Exactly.
And having, being autistic, we
struggle with it, right? I mean, just to be vulnerable, I struggle. You will hear us.
It's not easy. Yeah.
It's not easy. I will admit that I spend, hours of my life over the last 2 years collectively, sitting on a couch or something, wondering, I really do. Like there was a time where people would tell me you're behaving this way. And I would go, I'm not lying. I don't know what you mean. Like I was so unself-aware in a moment at some social gathering in pattern, like many of them, that somebody close to me would go, you're fill in the blank, right? You're kind of stepping on toes. You're like, you said this thing and I think you thought it was funny, but it wasn't. It just sounded mean. Right. And
yeah. I mean, and that's like there's some differences there. I think the key differences are like, I think ADHDers can, and I'm guilty of this myself too, but it's like we can say things very bluntly, which can come off as rude, or be very like truth tellers, like say the truth in inappropriate times. I'm totally guilty of that, right? But
you have to ask the question: was that necessary, or were you thirsty?
It is foot in mouth.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But we're aware of the context. It's not like a lot of times we're not surprised after. It's more of like the words came out of my mouth. And then I saw it land, and then I said, "Oh crap! I should not have said that."
And that's so keen. Okay, that's so key, right?
Yes,
we're aware. Maybe not immediately because the impulse had to happen without your awareness.
Yeah,
but like right after,
pretty soon.
Oh shit! I said that.
Yeah. Whereas I think the difference for someone who's autistic, they are kind of confused. They're still like, "Well, what's the appropriate? What were people expecting? Like, I don't understand. Wait, how did that? What was wrong with that?" Right. They don't. So they kind of need the input from others around them being like, well, this is why that thing that you said was hurtful, or that's why what you said wasn't contextually appropriate because of these, you didn't pick up on the fact that this person was like sad and crying about this thing. And you were like, just get over it or something. Right. Like you didn't pick up on the social nuances.
What I'm hearing, and I want you to correct me if I'm saying this incorrect, like what I'm about to say to you is like what I would say is the man on the street version of what I just heard. What I just heard was that both an ADHD and someone on the spectrum, or both, will react or respond what others might perceive as impulsively, right? And interrupt or correct someone. And in the example of correcting someone bluntly, the ADHDer, more often but not always, will feel that they fucked up. But they feel that they fucked up. So it's cerebral and felt. Whereas what you just described for the ASD person sounds like you might be able to explain to them cerebrally why that person was hurt, but you have to radically accept that they might not ever feel that, right? Like that person might not ever feel that with you. They go, okay, well, that doesn't make sense to me. And I don't feel like I hurt their feelings. I just said something correct. But you have to explain to them, I know you don't feel that, but they do. So does that, am I?
Yes, pretty much. But it's, I would add this caveat. I don't think it's that they may never feel it. I think that it would just take a lot more understanding and nuanced explanations for them to be able to say, well, why? I have to add this up and now I see. Right. Yeah.
And I thank
Like
you. I wanted that caveat because I wanted to say it in a way that was a little clunky, and then you can clean it up. And I really appreciate that. The distinction at its most basic and not insulting is person A with ADHD may have a bit more self-awareness when it comes to the feeling place and need less explanation of how they hurt someone's feelings. But this person B, the person on the spectrum, may need more time explaining, more understanding to put the pieces together and go, oh, I see why I hurt their feeling, right? So like, and now you combine them and you make a co-occurring AuDHDer.
Yeah.
And I hope everyone listening understands why Aaron and I do what we do. This brain game is really complicated. It's so complicated.
It's so interesting.
It's so fascinating. Like when you combine those two things we just described, which exists in the world, it presents even more bizarre and fascinating, right?
Yeah. And I love the folks that have this unique brain wiring because they are some of the most interesting and exceptional people out there. So we're talking about some of the downsides or the struggles and stuff about them. But there's considerable upsides and other things that I think make these folks just beautiful human beings. So I don't want anyone to kind of just hear this as like we're saying everything bad, but I think in terms of like differential diagnosis, what's the difference between ADHD and ASD autistic folks? That's what we're just getting into. And I think there's one critical one that I want to mention here before we move on from this topic. I want to mention that I think, and this is something I see in my clinical practice when I'm talking to someone and they say, "Oh yeah, I was newly diagnosed with ADHD," and then they talk about their symptoms, their presentation. So one of the things I think that differentiates an ASD person is the fact that they struggle a lot more with flexibility.
Right.
When someone comes to me and says, and I'll give you kind of an example of what this might look like, right? When they come to me and they're like, I have a really hard time when my routine gets thrown off.
Right.
Or when there's a meeting that something happens that disrupts something that I was planning to do. A lot of times someone with ADHD or even social anxiety, right? Let's just say someone with social anxiety. If a meeting gets canceled or engagement gets canceled, they don't have a meltdown. A lot of times they're like, thank God.
I was waiting.
I want to sit at home and read my book. This is
never wanted to go to that meeting. Yes, like we don't have to do the discomfort, the uncomfortable thing. Thank God. Yeah. No notes. So the other group.
Yeah, and whereas there are autistic folks, they'll be like flustered and what do I do now? Like this throws off my entire day because it's a sequence. I was going to go this and I was going to do this and I plan to do this and then after I was going to do this, and now they just kind of get. It's like they glitch, right? It's like a glitch in the system, and it's like crap. Now I have to like replan my entire day and reprioritize everything, and it can overwhelm them.
Totally,
which then can lead to some emotional meltdown in the moment. Sometimes, right? Depending on how significant that event or expectation was, right? Like, so it's the flexibility, the cognitive flexibility and adaptability of change in the moment, and the rigidity to schedules and routines and that type of stuff. And let's be honest, a lot of ADHDers struggle quite a bit with consistency too, right? So when I hear someone who's like very consistent about things, they might be distracted, they might be impulsive, but they're very consistent. Like, okay, every day I do this, or the same outfit,
right? Ritual, routine, or like
very ritualistic,
really clear. Yeah.
I mean, not just like a little bit, but like everything.
No, I love this distinction. I love this because you're leaving the perfect amount of room for. You can still have ADHD impulse. You can still have ADHD tendencies. What makes our ADHD friends so beautiful and fascinating to us is what you just said. The fact that you could possess multitudes that we relate to and are shocked by, right? We're like, oh, I relate to that ADHD impulse. I relate to that. I relate to that. And they go, wait, why is your house so fucking organized? And why are you always on time? Right? I've never you're in fact, you're early to everything. How can both be true? AuDHD, like it can be, they both can be true. And I find that is the piece, brother, the ritual, there's an extra level of discipline to an AuDHDer that is shocking to the ADHDer because we spend most of our lives trying to find discipline and regularity, right? Like pattern. And somebody like, I'm thinking of a friend right now right? Who suffers through the things, I'm going to use a word that some people might know, limerence, right? Like who suffers through some like pretty classic AuDHD, like high empathy and emotional dependency on ritual and routine, but also heightened empathy and heightened social attractions, right? Like the ADHD part of it, right? The like need to please, the yes person, the like the socialite. Watching those two things dance together is awesome and not always easy. In fact, it can be insufferable for this friend of mine who I'm thinking about, right? The fact that in one part of your life, you are an A-lister. You are on time. You're early. You schedule things 2 weeks in advance. You've got 2 kids, a full-time job. But then on the other side, you're meeting with me once a week to talk about how exhausted you are by your own attachments, like your own ego and emotional attachments to people and your own need to please. And this desire to be so hyper social that you kind of ward people off a bit. I'm like, oh, I'm starting to hear ADHD. I'm starting to hear social impulse and like talking too much and trauma dumping and TMI and making people uncomfortable. And then they walk away, right? Or they stop texting you. And that balancing act is interesting. That balancing act is really interesting because here I am sitting on the couch for the first half of this person's lament thinking, God, I wish I had an ounce of your discipline, you know? Yeah. Man, I wish I could.
And that's the misconception a lot of times with, you know, when we hear just the textbook symptoms of autistic folks, it's like people think because they struggle sometimes with the social nuances and timing and sort of stuff like that, that they don't feel it. And I think that
that's that's such an asshole thing. I hope
it's because like
fuck off.
It's like no, they still need friendships. They want to be liked. Like everyone else, right? And sometimes they just struggle harder than others do to get to that place of making the friend, keeping the conversation going, having reciprocal exchanges and interactions, those kind of things, not boring or kind of getting off onto a tangent and digging too far into some hyper fixation and perseveration.
Honestly, we had met a little bit before to talk about the topics, and I think we can squeeze in that third one right now as a sentence, actually, and something to chew on for next time, because then I know you have another topic you want to discuss. And that's the sort of like during these hard times, if there's chaos outside, please note those listening, if you are a non-ADHD and listening for someone who is, right, that what they are telling you is not bullshit, nor is it an excuse, nor is it bitching, moaning, and whining. This time right now, that's really hard for everyone in our country, is 2, 5, 10x more difficult for the kinds of people we're describing and ourselves. We were just playfully and kind of sweetly, Aaron and I, talking about differences and distinctions between autism, ADHD, and then AuDHD. And we were using pretty light sort of allegorical examples of social fuck-ups, right? But I want everybody listening to force multiply that. In a time when folks like RFK have actual power and threaten to remove rights from us, when people like fill in the blanks, the Stephen Millers, the Pam Bondis of the world, when your own government, your nation are doing things to minority groups of people that are haunting and nightmarish and unmitigated and just fucking free reign, do whatever you want. That plus everything else, hurricanes, volcanoes.
Let's say marginalized folks, not.
You keep correcting me on this, and I like that. Yeah. So marginalized folks, right? Disenfranchised groups is another way they like to put it, right?
Yeah.
So disenfranchised groups are increasingly more disenfranchised during times like this, right? During very objectively and observably corrupt and fucking weird times. We, the neurodivergent, are suffering 2, 4, 5, 10x. And it's for the reasons we just listed, actually, but blown up to scale, right? We don't have the same amount of time and space and forgiveness to figure this shit out on the fly like we might if the outside world wasn't fucking chaos, right? Shit is crazy outside right now. And that means that your friends who are neurodivergent and have complex mental conditions, who are medicating, who are seeking treatment, please go give them a hug. Yeah. Give them a hug and don't tell them why, and they'll know. Look them in the eye. Put your hands on their shoulder, look in my eyes and go. And then give them a hug, and they'll go, you get it. Oh, thank you. No words, a free hug. We should have a sign that says, go hug an ADHDer today.
Go hug a neurodivergent friend.
Go hug a neurospicy friend today.
And we can't separate the outside world and the stressors that are happening out there from the internal dysfunction and emotional dysregulation that's happening. That's
so true.
Yeah, because a lot of that stuff, like we're told we should get over it or somehow be stoic in the face of it or be strong, like just get through it. Kind of, that's the messaging our society oftentimes like feeds us, is this like,
no, they really do.
This like,
suck
get
it
over
up
it,
and smile.
suck it up. Yeah. And I think that's destructive and damaging, because what it does is it's not validating the experience of, you know what, when I have, and I don't want to say cannot, but when I have a very difficult time already regulating my emotions just with the day-to-day work stressors and life stressors, and then you pile on top of that a lot of horrible, horrific news coverage and traumatic stuff happening in the world, right? That is hard to deal with. And it's much harder for our neurodivergent minds to tune that stuff out.
It's damn near impossible, honestly. Like I'll put it bluntly, I have to not listen. I have to choose to watch something else. I have to choose to not listen.
For self-care, not because not because we want to not be informed.
No, I'm invested. I'm one of the most invested people, Aaron. And because of that also, I know that it will take very little heavy lifting for a piece of news to dysregulate me for the whole day.
Yeah. I'm like you too. Like I have to be much more discerning and diligent about what news I'm consuming, when I'm consuming it, how much I'm consuming it. Because if I read the wrong headline and start getting into something, or hear a podcast, and then all of a sudden it's just like, that's affecting me. I'm thinking about that. My mind's pulled in that direction, and emotionally I'm feeling it.
There's nobility in it too, though. I'm hearing you talk. Like I'm honored. I'm still honored by you, Aaron. And I know that people are listening, and I want to honor them too. If you are like us, if you're nodding vigorously, please don't feel shame for caring. Please don't feel shame for caring this much. Like we care this much. Like
we care deeply.
We care deeply. The fact that somebody can say, it's funny you brought up the stuff about like the toxic productivity thing in here. Somebody who interviewed me for a podcast that we will talk about off this recording has recently reached out to have us back. And because of that communication, I'm sure the social media algorithm started sending this person's stuff to me recently. And I watched a lecture they gave about their business. And to be clear, it's in the beauty arena. So I'll just say it's in the beauty arena. And they're giving a lecture to people. And they said something that immediately canceled any chance of us working with this person. They said, I will fire you if you come into work and people think you're in a bad mood. So if you come into work without a smile, basically, that's the quickest way to get fired. And I was tracking with this person in their little lecture up until that point. And when I tell you that in a fraction of a second, I turned off the video and put my phone down and almost lost my day, because I was interviewed by this person and I almost said yes to being re-interviewed by this person. And I heard this and I didn't need any follow-up. That's toxic. It's extremely toxic behavior to threaten people with their job for having a bad day. And I want that person to understand that is an extremely unhealthy, vicious, and toxic way to think about productivity in the workplace, right? So it's
the opposite of acceptance, understanding.
No, it's denial and rejection. That is a person who's outright telling you, that is a person objectively telling you, I don't care if you're suffering, don't let me know, right? So like, fuck that. That is an old, arcaic world of thinking. That is insidious and old, and let it die. If someone's having a bad day, they're having a bad day. If they're coming into work for you on a bad day, that is a blessing to you, my friend. That is not a critique on them. You're lucky that they showed up.
And it's an opportunity for you as the manager or the owner or whoever to have some amount of understanding and compassion for your employee and meet them where they're at and say, hey, all right, thank you for coming in. Thank you for showing up. I appreciate it, because it took everything for them.
I would love to live in your world. I would love to live in your world where a manager says, hey, I'm so honored by you even showing up. I know what's going on in your life, because the same manager also knows what's going on in their lives. Hey, I know what's going on at home, and I'm just moved that you're here.
Yeah. Let's adjust the expectations today. What do you need? What do you need?
Yeah.
How can we help? Right? Like that's a whole different response, and it shows that you care.
Just the violence and the uncaring, as you just said, it shows that you care. The uncaring attitude of the language that this person used, the quickest way to get fired in my company is to come in with a bad mood. And I was like, well, honey, I would neither be hired by you nor ever hire you, because you are a cretin, and I don't want you or your philosophy to exist. It's really self-absorbed and so toxic. So I told that anecdote because it's very relevant, and that's a problem. That's a bummer. When I saw that on the toilet, like I say on the toilet a lot for you guys, but that's because that's where I'm doing my Instagram. That's what I'm doing my social media.
It's his research lab.
That's my research lab. Yeah. The lab is the porcelain throne. Okay. So like I have used my own boundary setting to remove social media from my life. And so one of the main places I'm doing this, just so everybody's know, when I'm liking, commenting on your fucking, if you comment on my video and you get a heart and a response,
it's the loo.
It's the loo. It's coming from the porcelain throne directly. So I
thank you for your vulnerability, Stephen.
You're welcome. Honestly, pat on the back. We don't poop shame here, but we do not. The point, the bigger point is the time of day. Actually, it's the start of my day, and at the start of my day, if I'm watching this cut down of a person who wants to collaborate with us, say hideous, toxic things, I am going to spend at least an hour of that day, maybe 2, later on, thinking about it and being upset and concerned, and like I have to reject this person at some point. They're going to ask me again.
Yeah, rejection is hard. Yes,
the whole day was disrupted. I was like, I have to tell this person no, because like I just saw something, and I'm the kind of person who wants to be. I don't want to ghost them. And be like, oh, sorry, it's too busy right now. I don't want to lie. I want to actually call it, like respond to the person and go, our views don't align.
Yeah, I want to emphasize what you just said there, because it's like I think that's really important. Where it's like it's essentially the rejection sensitivity coming out, right? We want people to like us. So what is it? What is it? Like, even when you're right, you're justified to not want to work with this person. But some part of you feels an increase of stress and anxiety because you're going to have to approach a difficult, uncomfortable conversation and reject someone, which then in turn, they're going to probably reject you.
Yep.
Right. Even if it's like, you don't even want to be friends. You don't want to really work with this person. Why is that? What do you think it is that creates that dynamic?
I think I'm gonna go right from the hip here. There are 2 things that came to me. One is the good and healthy reason and rationale.
Yeah.
And these are both feelings based. And then the other is the unhealthy and ego attachment one. And I'll start from the back and end positive. The unhealthy ego attachment reason is for it's into that category of rejection. For if I reject them, they'll reject me, and I can't have people not like me, and I also can't have other
people pleasing.
Yes, I can't have other, and I want to expand the people pleasing to include another ring of people. It's not just the person I'm engaging with who might not like me. It's how will I be perceived by others by having rejected this person. Or if there's a person out there who I formally and politely reject, they have a voice and they're going to go out and use it. And I have an ego attachment fear that any number of people increase out in the world who dissent or disagree with me is scary. Just bluntly. It's just like, it's an ego attachment. I'm embarrassed by it. I'm mortified by the idea. I'm terrified of it. It's a terror, right? It's a deep, deep insecurity that if I piss someone off, they will go out into the world and they will tell other people about it. And then other people will start to perceive me other than what I think I am, right? So it's a people pleasing, but also a false perception of who I am. I'm a perfectionist when it comes to my perception to others. And if I have marred that or scarred it with my own doing, talk about like complicated. I'm like, by my own doing, I messed up this thing I'm hypersensitive to. So that's the unhealthy ego attachment.
Reputational
management is that's a great way to put it. Reputational management. I do breath work and therapy and created this company with Aaron to get rid of that shit. Like eventually, I don't want that's the unhealthy ego.
Ideally, right? Ideally, we don't want to have that running the show.
Yeah, because then you're just like trying to people please. You're trying to please everyone. You're you're beholden to all these people. It's, honestly, we say reputational management, and beholdenness. So it's beholdenness and reputational management. That's category 1, which is an ego attachment. The real place, the healthy place, feelings place, is how you started talking about. It's also people pleasing. But I was raised by an incredibly inflexible man and an incredibly flexible woman. And I received more of a feminine raising and education. So like more of my core is rooted in flexibility when it comes to emotional, like forgiveness, to put it bluntly. I was educated and raised by a forgiving person, right?
High empathy.
Empathy and then no empathy, right? So the combination is interesting. That side of me, I'm not mad at. I don't want it to go away, and I want it to be there always, because that that voice can be a short second guess, like a quick, like, hey, just a quick gut check. What they said means this. And my rational brain goes, yes, that's what that means. And we don't like what that means. And that part of my head goes, with love, well, you disagree with them. Like, you fundamentally disagree with them. This is not a person you're interested in working with, because that struggle is more true and more healthy. It's like,
it's trusting your own gut and your own decision of, this is what I'm going to do, regardless of what's coming up for me in the moment, whether it's insecurity or whatever. It's like sticking to your principles.
Yeah. Which, by the way, what I'm saying is, these are still hard, right? We open this up and be saying these are challenges. It's just that the latter I appreciate, because that's a challenge we should all invite, right?
Yeah.
To test our principles.
And we were and we were talking about kind of the X number fold increase of how ADHDers experience relative suffering in the world, right? And I want to like throw some statistics at you here again, just in terms of like emotional dysregulation. So adults with ADHD experience 2 to 3 times more intense emotional reactions compared to neurotypical adults.
Yeah.
That's what the research
that's
shows.
Daily. Like as we get older, have you had this experience with your non-ADHD friends, Aaron? It's a cliche one, so I'm assuming yes. Where you ask them, like, almost sometimes in jocular, like joking, wait, you guys don't consider your stake, their parents' feelings, and their partner's feelings when you're having a conversation at lunch? And people will be like, no, I'm just having the conversation. I'm thinking about the next data point.
You mean you didn't ruminate in your head for the next 3 to 4 hours about what you said and what they said and how you
didn't replay it in your head like 5-10 times after lunch, in between lunch and the hike? And they're like, no, I thought about my job and my mom, and then I went on the hike. And you're like, what plan? My whole experience is so opposite yours. And the ones who've known me for 20 years, we laugh about this now. We don't even debate it. We won't discuss it because it's so obvious. They will make room for my ADHD, right? They will leave room. So we don't have to discuss it because they know it. But if it ever got to a point where someone else was in the group and didn't know this, I know that they know it well enough to defend it and go, oh, that's just how Steven's brain works. And honestly, consider yourself lucky because his brain won't turn off. Right. And some of the most honored and like almost moved to tears that I feel is when a homie steps into the ring and goes, hey, consider it from his perspective for a second. He's like, he can't turn his brain off. So like, yeah, you might be a little annoyed that he like knows all these fun facts and wants to share them, but like you get to turn your brain off and not think about those things, and he doesn't. So like, maybe don't be a dick about it. He's just happy to share facts, you know? And I'm like, thanks, bros. And also, yeah, go fuck yourself. It's absolutely that. Like, I wish I didn't have this need to tell you everything I watched in a YouTube video last night, but that's what my brain does.
Speaking of which, I have an intense need in this moment to share a few more statistics.
Share them. Yeah.
So just to underscore this point on emotional rejection sensitivity. So 70 to 80% of adults with ADHD have extreme sensitivity to perceived rejection, criticism, failure. And another area that like people, when we talk about co-occurring conditions, depression, anxiety, substance use. So depression intensity, that increases by a severity level of 37% higher. And that's just like the symptom severity, how they're experiencing depression. And then the resistance to treatment is 23% higher than just having depression without ADHD.
This tracks from my experience, but it's also tragic to hear. Like the more difficult, the more confusing and difficult the condition combination, the less incentivized we are to go share about that. In other words, like the shame is so. What I'm hearing from that is the shame is so strong about. In other words, the shame is 1-to-1 to how hard it is for you to cope. That like they're in a way they're related. Perfect. It's not an inverse relationship. It's however hard it is for you to figure this shit out. That's how high the shame is, and that stops you from going in.
It's an exacerbation of the underlying thing that's already hard. It's depression.
Right.
But now it's like, well, here's these other challenges. We're going to make it harder to actually improve because It's harder to stick to the treatments and all the things that you need to do.
This is where ADHD for you.
And you're going to experience the depression way harder because you have a lot of emotional dysregulation and sensitivity. So you're going to really feel this. Like other people feel it, but you're going to feel it even more. And likewise, anxiety. So ADHD heightens the anxiety response as well, which is 53% of adults with ADHD plus anxiety report that their anxiety symptoms are more intense, right?
Can confirm. And by the way, can confirm for an ADHDer who did not experience anxiety, did not present with anxiety, did not if I felt anxious, it was because I was about 15 minutes before going on stage in high school. But that's because I was nervous about being on stage and performing. I did not start experiencing real generalized anxiety until grad school, like being in LA. And now it's ever present. Now it's something that's with me. Like they can confirm when I have an anxiety attack, of which I've had a number the last year. They quickly rise to a panic attack once or twice over the last 12 months. And that is brand new to me.
That's shifting.
Brand new to me. Yeah. And I think that fits that statistic, right? As I've gotten into adult age, there's less guardrails. There are fewer guardrails for an anxiety attack.
Yeah. As we get older, some of the more well-managed symptoms, for lack of a better phrase, are the symptoms change. The symptom clusters change. So certain things that you were able to do earlier on as a younger age, like in let's just say,
which is true for people.
Yeah, it's true for people, right? It's true in general, right? Yeah. Certain things get harder as we get older. But I think with neurodiversity, with ADHD, it can show up like anxiety, right? It's like, okay, let's come up with an example here. Like staying out late. In your 20s, it could be like, well, I only need 4 hours, 5 hours of sleep. I can bounce back. I can stay out late. And the reward
might be great enough to make you feel really good the next day.
Yeah, I'll go out to this event. I'll, party with some friends, whatever. And it's, maybe it's an impulsive decision in the moment. Well, the next day, you might be experiencing some of the
hangover
effects.
You're hangover,
yeah.
But who cares when you're 24?
But maybe you're bouncing back emotionally. Right? You're not experiencing some of the guilt and shame spiral because maybe at that time you don't have all of those loads of responsibilities. Right?
Yeah, no, that's right. You're right. It's the two candle at both ends, right? It's the two. Yeah, you not only are you not experiencing the shame and the guilt, you also don't have the load of responsibility that you do when you're in your 30s and 40s. That's true.
Yeah, and so now it's like we wake up, we're like, oh, why did I do that? I can't do this.
Aaron, the number of the innumerable conversations that I have with people who are my age and older about God, dude, it's just you're getting old and we feel so square and lame. But the conversations that I have that are about I'm managing the microdosing of caffeine after having cut out weed and alcohol and being what is this all for? Oh, just so that I can wake up and not hate myself. Do you know what I mean? Hearing that as a common refrain from 30 and 40 somethings tells me that regardless of your complex health condition or regardless of your brain wiring, as we get older, to Aaron's point, the ship don't sail as well. The machine doesn't bounce back like it used to. And if you add to that a pre-existing condition, then the compounding effect. And I don't want to leave one other thing off the table. Also, so compounding effect of aging and a condition, but also the fucking symptoms change. You said this at the top of this, the bundles of symptoms change. I used to be a fight person in a distress moment. And then in grad school, I became a freeze person. Just that transition alone was extremely disrupting to me. I used to be the kind of person who would fight, find a solution. Then in grad school, my partner at the time was like, you just kind of stop moving in the living room and don't do anything. And I'm like, that's fucking sucks. That's new. I was never the freeze guy, but that's a new anxious ADHD symptom that I got at that 30, right? Or at 29. Yeah.
And I would have to say,
complicated.
I would have to say that that's an evolution. I would say for you that it's a helpful and healthy evolution of self, that you have more self-awareness. And before it probably was, you had a lot more reactivity.
Oh, right. The fight was reactivity rather than well thought out or planned.
And now, I think now you're like, I learned how to fight better. I don't just react. I learned how to maintain relationships and be better at how we're fighting, how we're engaging in whatever the conflict is.
I like this. I like when you're doing this.
And how much you're reflecting on your own words and actions and deeds and things and taking responsibility for those. Because before you might have just kind of been like more of like, you know,
blown up and thrown punches.
This is me. This is me.
Fuck off.
Accept it. Like, this is who I am.
Yeah.
Whatever. If you didn't like it, something, right? That's not what I intended. But I think you're
getting at a poetry. Yeah. Well, because if I can, one is because one half is suffering and one half is growth, right? You're actually, I think you're helping me to define something that I used to think is PTSD as PTG, post-traumatic growth, where naturally there was an evolution of, I like this, but it still includes suffering. That's why I want listeners to understand the duality. On the one hand, I was doing things with Aaron right there for a while to improve my ability to communicate and respond rather than react, build a company together eventually. So I'm naturally growing in maturity. I'm naturally reaching growth potentials and becoming less reactive, more responsive. But also during that time, and hear me on this level, a skill that I could depend on, a tool that I had depended on for 28 years, right? 18 if you're just going adulthood, right? But for a long time, I had depended on being a fight guy, always having a solution. So I became a producer, always having a plan. There's an exit strategy. There's got to be an exit strategy. How beautiful and important to appreciate, while simultaneously growing maturity and maturing in the ways that I would hope, I was also being confronted with a nightmare scenario. This skill that I used to have that protected me is gone. Somebody has tied my hand behind my back and told me to embrace the new discomfort, right? And that there was a period of intense suffering where I didn't understand what was happening inside of me. I didn't understand. Imagine standing in a living room, being distressed and overwhelmed, having an anxiety attack, and not knowing what that is, right? Not knowing what that is, being confused, intensely confused. Why can't I move? Why can't I move? Why can't I move? That space was brand new. Now, it's funny you mentioned it the way you did, Aaron. I totally agree though. Now years out, I actually radically accept that I'm anxious, and it helps me set better boundaries, right? I get to avoid the freeze place, the burnout place. And I'm more cogently doing that. I have been more well equipped to handle the brain I have now versus the one I had at 24. And instead of grieving over that skill that, as you point out, had its own nuance, some good, some bad. I will say that the transition, the interim can suck because you're confused. You don't know what the fuck is happening, but you are absolutely right. And I'm so honored by you that on the other side of it, in hindsight, it's actually quite lovely that I stopped, just reactivity fight, Yeah,
it's a maturing, it's a growth, because the goal is to become more regulated, better regulated. Right. That's the goal, and respond intentionally. Align those intentions and actions. But that's also the core of ADHD. That's the core dysfunction of ADHD, is aligning my intentions and my actions. And as we age and get more mature, we're confronted with that reality.
And I'm smiling. I'm smiling because I almost cried. This is worth it. Worth it. It's so worth it. I feel so much older in a cool way. I feel like Luke Skywalker in the third, in the sixth film, but in the Return of the Jedi, wear your black, wave that green lightsaber around. There's a strength and an empowering feeling to having gone through the fire to get to it.
And as like Brene Brown notes, right? It's that you have to step into the arena. You have to go to that uncomfortable place within yourself and in your relations to heal. We can't avoid it. It's one of those things that it'd be great. It'd be the easiest thing to avoid, and to just say, "No, I don't want to deal with this."
It's easier to avoid. It's always easier to avoid.
And that's where I think the substance use a lot of times comes in. It's the self-soothing. It's the avoidance of discomfort. It's the self-medicating type of behaviors and self-soothing behaviors where we just try to numb ourselves with substances
to boredom and pain. I want to be really clear from my own experience. It's from boredom and pain. It's either the pain, and you can fill into that bucket whatever you want. The pain of having to have an interview, the pain of having to talk to your
parents. Even I would say boredom is pain.
Right? Oh, okay, wait. Yes.
Boredom is pain.
So I said boredom and pain because boredom's a bigger pain monster. That's absolutely right. So pain. We are pain avoidant, discomfort avoidant, and boredom, I guess I'm just saying, is like one of the bigger pains.
Because think about it, right? If we're comfortable with ourselves, and we're comfortable with those empty moments of just being there with our mind, with our thoughts, we wouldn't be bored.
Yeah, you fucker. That's all right. I love doing emotional logic in my head. And that wasn't me trying to beat Aaron to the punch. That's like, Damn it. That's exactly right. That's the yogi in you, dude. If you were radically accepting yourself in that moment, boredom wouldn't exist. You wouldn't be bored. You would be utilizing that time for self-care or self-love or mind wandering, right? The healthy version of boredom is mind wandering. I'm convinced of that, right? So if we loved ourselves, we'd be like, ooh, a bit of mind wandering. I love this, right? Like, oh, a bit of just floating. I don't have anything to do right now. It's okay. I'm just sitting and listening. And I wouldn't be like itching like a fucking coke addict. Like, what's the next thing? I go to the next dopamine.
Yeah.
Thing.
I have to fill this space. I have to fill it with entertainment. I have to fill it with something dopamine provoking.
It's got to be work or on TV or weed or alcohol or something. There's got to be something to make me feel on right now, you know? And it's so much stronger to not be imprisoned by that, to not be ball and chain anchored to that. Yeah. Cool.
I think that's a good place to end it.
I couldn't agree more. Brene at the end, of course.